Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us for today's Channel Expert Hour session featuring some experts and friends from eFolder. We're really glad that you were able to take some time out today to join us for the conversation. Before we get started with the details, I want to make sure that we cover a few quick housekeeping items, and then we will do a setup and introduction for the experts that will be providing us with content during today's call. First things first, make sure that you guys are familiar with the interface. There are a number of ways that you can customize and choose to interact. We really want to invite you to participate in the process and make this as much of a two-way conversation as possible. So please feel free to submit questions as well as to participate with us in the digital universe. You'll notice that one of those buttons at the bottom is a Twitter button, and that will allow you to feed out to your community information, thoughts, and other details that you capture during the conversation. Please feel free to do that so that we can expand the reach as much as possible. One of the things that we often get questions about, how do I make sure that this looks as good on my screen as possible? The window that you are viewing the slides in is customizable for your viewing in your system environment. You can click to resize, you can click and drag to move it around so that you can keep both this window and your Twitter feed open at the same time. Please do definitely participate with us in the interactive conversation. We will be taking questions through the digital system as we go through today's conversation, so definitely let's get that conversation going. Let's ask questions as early and as often as you guys have them as they come up in the conversation. We will take some time here and there to pause and respond to those questions. Let's get that rolling and make sure that you guys are getting your specific details answered. On to our conversation then. Today we're going to be joined by eFolder talking about solving the problems of business continuity, backup, and disaster recovery using some very specific and advanced solutions that speak to some of the very challenges that you and your customers are dealing with today. My name, as a quick introduction, is Ryan Morris. I'll be serving as your host throughout the conversation today and definitely moderating questions and answers, but available for any input and feedback as we go through the conversation as well. Quick summary of the topics that are included in today's session. We will cover this concept of business continuity within the specific realm of the SMB customer set. We understand both technologically, financially, and operationally, BDR is a different conversation when we're working with SMB customers than when we're working with larger mid-market companies. We want to talk about exactly what that looks like and what the dynamics are in your world. We also want to introduce some new technologies from eFolder for the Replibit environment so that you guys are able to implement and support very advanced solutions. We'll talk about some of the challenges that your customers face and match those up with the benefits of this particular solution so that you can actually recognize where these opportunities make the most sense and which kinds of customers you ought to be targeting with this kind of information. And as we mentioned before, definitely questions and answers throughout. Let's keep this interactive. Make sure that you guys are jumping in and submitting any questions as we go. Quick introduction then for the other folks that will be joining us on today's conversation. First, Ted Hulsy, VP of Marketing for eFolder. Ted, are you on the line with us?
Yep. Ryan, it's great to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. Welcome, Ted. And also Sean Harris, the CEO of Replibit IT. Sean, are you on the line with us?
Yeah, I'm here, Ryan. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you guys very much for joining us. Obviously, what we get from an industry point of view is very, very interesting in terms of overall trends and dynamics. But where this stuff really matters is in the trenches, right? Real companies that do this stuff for a living every day. That's one of the reasons why we're excited to have Sean join us here today on the conversation. Sean, if you wouldn't mind, if you could just take a couple of minutes, give us a little bit of background and intro on your business and how the BDR opportunity plays into your overall strategy.
Sure. Well, I'll go into that more in these upcoming slides, but we were founded as a CMIT franchise in 2005. That's actually when I worked for the prior owner. I bought the company 6 years ago now. We grew from one employee to, which was me and the owner, to now I have 5 employees with me. We So the 60 clients you see there, those are clients that are in managed service contracts. And part of what I'll talk about is the transformation that we've done in our business, which is to have a baseline with all of our clients in order to offer better management of their systems, but also to kind of clear up headaches for us in the IT, on our side, in our NOC, less tickets.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you, that's the point of view that I hear most about when we have these conversations around the industry. It's one thing to sell it to the customer. It's another thing entirely to deliver it in an operational environment that allows you to actually go home in the evenings and not pull out all of your hair for all of the conflicts that are going on. So we're going to look forward to hearing some of your thoughts about not only how it's relevant to those customers you guys deal with in your target audiences, but how specifically you have made this more operational. I think that's a very interesting front in the conversation around BDR. So thank you very much for joining us. Before we dive into the content, couple of quick comments for you guys in terms of just market sizing and scoping the opportunity. We've been talking about BDR as a general technology category for many years. I was personally kind of born in this industry 20-odd years ago in the world of tape backup systems, and we all lived for the world of, if information is valuable to begin with, then it stands to reason that it would also be worth backing up. And we look at how the technology has evolved over all of those years. Much more capable technology today, much more advanced systems, performance, and business benefits that we can sell to our customers. And yet, there are still a lot of customers out there in the world who have yet to sign on with not just an advanced, comprehensive business continuity and data protection solution, but literally no data backup and recovery plan at all. According to IDC and some of their latest statistics, they indicate that fully 1/3 of the SMB audience or more doesn't have any business continuity plan or protection in place, and that there are some pretty serious consequences associated with having any kind of business interruption, data-related disaster that we don't have technology in place to address. We've all heard that kind of fear and uncertainty question of what would happen to your business if you experienced an outage or a disaster without having the right technology in place. Well, we can echo some of those concerns, and we can certainly say from a business point of view that the impact on operations is not just temporary, it's not just backing up data, but recovering overall business functionality, and that's something that your customers are aware of. But they always want to come back and put a number to it. How much does it cost, and how much would it justify for me to spend money on a disaster recovery solution? Well, we've all heard stories at the enterprise level where, if you're in the Wall Street industry and you're doing real-time trades and financial transactions, you're going to experience millions of dollars an hour in downtime. And that's probably not terribly relevant or realistic for the SMB customers that we deal with. So we've been tracking this number at the level of the SMB. And the median number, the best number in research that we've been able to rationalize, says the median cost of downtime for a small business, somebody that you actually sell to, just because of a weather event is $3,000. That is obviously a common occurrence. That's obviously the least of their problems, and yet that is more than enough cost impact to rationalize the investments that we're asking our customers to make. So in order to really kind of spur the interactive part of the conversation, let me pause for a second here. I want to invite everybody who is on the line with us to participate in a couple of polling questions. We're going to leave this one and then the next one up for just a minute or so that we can capture your input and feedback. Here on this slide, the question is, in the event of a server outage or failure, how quickly do your SMB customers expect to be back up and running? Option 1, within an hour. Option 2, 1 to 3 hours. Option 3, 4 to 8 hours. Option 4, more than a day later. while you guys are answering, just to make sure that you understand where we're going, make sure you're focusing on this from your customer's point of view. What do they expect to be able to achieve in terms of that recovery time to get a server back up and running? Pause for just another minute here, another couple of seconds anyway. Let's make sure that everybody has a chance to participate. Those of you that are out there, if you're doing questions and answers, thank you very much. We appreciate all of that input, but also make sure that you are submitting here on the survey question. As we go through that, I think we've had some good time there to go through the process. Let me kind of advance my slide here on this side, and then we will see how that turned out. Data feedback from you guys on the line in real time. Within an hour is a number that is accelerating. That number is certainly larger than it was before. Sometime today is the larger bucket of answers, and more than a day later, that's not nearly good enough. According to your customers, they won't tolerate that much downtime. They don't want to incur that much cost. Okay, if that's the expectation then that we have from our customers, are we actually able to meet those expectations, and can we put a business case on the table that justifies the expense required to get our customers to a point where they can be back up and running as quickly as they need to get their businesses back online? Thanks, guys, for sending us in your information there in the process. Let me kind of bring in some experts here, and we'll turn the time over now to Ted and to Sean, and we'll get some input from the trench point of view. How do those numbers compare to what you guys are experiencing? And Ted, from your point of view, how do we actually put that into the conversation with our customers to rationalize the technology to get them to those recovery expectations?
Well, I think my reaction would be similar to yours, Ryan, that the expectation for, minutes or no more than an hour of downtime is a number that is increasing, even in the small and medium business market. In general, I think what we're seeing is, traditional mid-enterprise or enterprise resiliency expectations trickle down into the SMB market. And a combination of different technologies like virtualization and cloud technologies and affordable virtualization technologies are really transforming the expectations of most small businesses. What we're also seeing, another trend, is just partners are realizing these expectations and see the business opportunity. And the business opportunity is really widening from like a narrow subset of an MSP's client base to something more broad, where it's virtually every single client wants some sort of a business continuity solution in place. So I think you see that in the data, and in today's conversation, I really want to, kind of tee up a couple concepts here at the beginning, and then really turn the floor over to Sean and hear about his experience of, taking business continuity deeper into his client base and how he's doing that. So those are just a couple observations on the polling results. So with that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to jump in there and say I think that you make the killer point there, and it's really where I think the audience is focused. This technology has been available to larger businesses at much higher price points, and we've got good proof points. It's just never really been accessible to the smaller businesses in an affordable way. I think that is the killer change that is bringing on some exciting opportunity. So let's learn a little bit about the technology from you guys.
Yeah, and I think what we're going to focus on today is eFolder's newest service offering, which we call eFolder BDR for Replibit. And this is like eFolder's other BDR services. We combine an image-based backup software tool with the eFolder cloud and deliver it in an end-to-end bundle for managed service providers so that you can go out and deliver business continuity to your clients. With one SKU, you can get the software and the cloud services you need to make a commitment to a client that whether you're trying to do a recovery on-site on the BDR appliance or in the cloud, you can source all of that from eFolder. on a wholesale basis and build it into your managed service offering. So just to provide a little bit of context before I turn the floor over to Sean, just when we talk about a BDR solution, let me just, and Replibit, the Replibit flavor rather, in particular, let me just make sure we're all on the same page about what we're talking about and how it works. So Replibit is a flavor of image-based backup software that would run on production servers. So there at the left part of the diagram, you would put the Replibit software on the systems you wanted to protect, the systems you wanted to provide uptime and resiliency for. The Replibit software would back up those images on a periodic basis, or back up those servers on a periodic basis, say like on the hour, and those images would be saved locally on the BDR appliance. The BDR appliance runs a special build of the Replibit software built on Linux, and it runs on that appliance. And that BDR appliance serves two critical functions. It serves as your local storage target for all the protected systems, but it's also the place you go and do a virtualized recovery if a production system fails or there's a massive corruption on one of the production environments. 95% of the time, you're not dealing with a natural disaster, you're not dealing with a fire or flood, you're dealing with hardware problems, software problems that are in your production systems, and you're doing the recovery right there on the BDR appliance. And that is what allows you to make make the commitment to clients that in most scenarios you can literally within minutes or just a few hours have their systems completely back up and running on site at their location. If something does happen that's catastrophic to a location, you want to make sure that all of the data is replicated off-site to the eFolder cloud, and then we protect all of your client systems and environments in our cloud environment. Our storage cloud today defends over 25 petabytes of data. And then if there is a site-wide disaster of some kind, partners have several different recovery techniques at your disposal, but today the one that's most common is the use of the eFolder Continuity Cloud, which is an on-demand, use it when you need it, recovery environment which allows you to stand up and virtualize your client servers in our cloud. So that's really what the combined solution does, but I want to hand the ball to Sean and really kind of just back up and explore a bit, how he discovered the Replibit and eFolder solution and some of the things he's trying to get done in his business. Sean.
Thanks, Ted. Hey, so fighting against the DIY mentality. So, I think I mentioned earlier, I alluded to it, that we've been transforming our business, and we had over 100 MSP contracts before. Actually, this year we've done most of the changing in these 6 months. We had a lot of small businesses that were paying not very much to us, and we were more of, I guess, a company that they just knew they could call when they had a problem, but we weren't in a position where we were doing a lot of preventative stuff. We do use a remote monitoring and maintenance tool. Our tools that we use are LabTech and ConnectWise, and I can talk about later how this all hooks into ConnectWise, which is how we automate a lot of this. But the thing we found with these clients is that they would have their own device. We actually have a very large client that we're about to switch off of a tape cradle, which is just a nightmare trying to get them back up with that kind of thing, that technology. So we're at a point now where we have a base that we do with all of our clients, and it includes a certain set of things, and one of them, for many of these clients, will be Replibit or is Replibit now with them. So, and the idea is we looked at it and we went, we could almost lose money on the Replibit side. Not that we do, we have good margins on it, but it would make our life easier to be able to do that. Because the worst thing you want is a client that is down, Sunday night. It's always the worst time of the day. It's always, maybe it's a holiday. They call, you're trying to figure out whatever backup system they have. Maybe they're in control of it and not you as the vendor or as the MSP, and you figure out they haven't paid it for 3 months or that it hasn't been backing up properly. So our whole thing is to manage by exception, which is part of what being a managed service provider is. So we set up things that are really good, partnering with client or vendors like eFolder that we know and trust, and then we know that if something happens, it's going to create a service ticket. And I'll talk about that a little bit more too. So the DIY, fighting that mentality is, we just make it and I'm sure you can make a lot of money just selling the product too, and I'm sure that Ted could tell you all about that, but we make a lot of money, or we make it a permission to play with us. And Ted mentioned earlier about how these enterprise technologies have trickled down now, and some of these people are asking for these continuity technologies. But a lot of them don't even know it exists. And if you have that conversation about, I used to have this conversation about, we walk a balance between expense and how quickly we can get you back up. And I'd let them pick a place on that line where how expensive, for thousands of dollars a month, we can have you back up in minutes, and for $60 a month for Carbonite or something, we can have you back up in days. Maybe we have to download everything, get everything going. Or maybe a week if it's a tape backup or something like that. So the problem that I found, though, as I continued on, was that they may pick up area on that line, but when it actually comes time to recover them, that's a client that you're going to lose. If it takes a week to get them back up, you're going to lose that client. So we found a way to basically build it into the permission to play for us to be able to even be their provider. We don't sell it a la carte. We build it all in, and that way we can actually make sure we're still within budget for them, but it's no longer a choice, and it's something that we control. So the big part of that, which I mentioned earlier, the minimizing risk and liability. So I think whatever you pick, we had an option, and I'm sure other MSPs or other vendors on the line, other IT people, you can vault this yourself. You can do different things like that. But really, you got to have something that's bulletproof with a company that you trust. And eFolder for us has been that person. And that's part of, I think, the last here, standardizing vendors. That was the other thing, too. I allowed the client to dictate exactly what they wanted. Kind of the customer is always right. Well, part of our job is we are the trusted expert, and we know things that they do not. And so we're doing them a disservice, our clients, if we don't bring in these types of things and explain it in such a manner that it's understandable. So, after the fact, when I came back to a lot of my clients and tripled and quadrupled, and for some of them 10 times what they were paying before, and we implemented these types of things, Replibit, we put in unified threat management routers, things that I would let them dictate if that was something that they thought they needed or not, or I'd hem and haw with them or go over it piece by piece. When I came back and said, this is the package that we do, they actually, I got a positive feedback where they said, this is amazing. I didn't realize this was available. I didn't realize that this was affordable. So some of the things that were, here you go. So bundle BDR with other managed services. That's exactly what we do. We don't do it a la carte. So this is really neat, the agnostic hardware of Replibit. This is why we like Replibit. So we can do a lot of things with Replibit where we can put it on existing servers that we have. Generally, when I'm doing the margins, which I'll talk to later, when I'm budgeting out how much I'm going to build into the managed service contract, usually I'll take the cost to stand up the hardware and the cost of the hardware itself, and I'll divide it by 36 months so that we have a 3-year thing. And usually that's $50 to $100, that portion of it, and then I'll take the cost of the BDR, then I'll build in my margins, and then I'll build that into the MSP contract. Yeah, and I talked about that too. That's a big deal. There's nothing worse than setting up something that everything goes down at once, because even on our end, things are going to go down. That continuity cloud that Ted talked about is fantastic. That's something that really helps a lot in issues and problems. So we've actually expanded our stuff with, I know today we're just talking about Replibit, but eFolder also has a backup solution that's really great, and they also have AnchorWorks, which is fantastic too, and we have that with a lot of our clients. And so we've been trying to standardize that. We've been standardizing our routers. We actually use Sophos routers. But I don't think it matters what it is, but at some point you have to standardize across hardware so that you can get the experts, you can get the deep knowledge that you need, and then you also aren't spending time constant time trying to figure out every solution.
And Sean and Ted, a couple of quick questions that have been coming in during the conversation. I want to make sure we're keeping this interactive here. One question from a design point of view, the backups that happen into the cloud, we often get questions from the customers about where is that actually hosted and stored, what is the construction design and the resiliency of that session. If we're actually dealing with geographic questions or with redundancy questions, do you guys have a good way to help us explain where the cloud-based backup actually resides?
Yeah. I mean, the short answer is with eFolder BDR for Replibit, the data resides in our Salt Lake City data center for U.S. customers, for Canadian customers, and the data resides in Kelowna, British Columbia. eFolder operates 4 different data centers throughout the world: Atlanta, Salt Lake City, Kelowna, and Amsterdam. And generally, in the case of a BDR solution, you know, having replication to a single data center as your backup environment is usually good enough because it's a second or third copy of the data. It's not like the data in the cloud is the only copy of the data. So that's usually good enough. I mean, we do have on certain product lines the opportunity for partners to replicate to a second data center, and hardly any of our MSP partners take us up on that because it's a second or third copy of the data in most cases. So that's the answer. Is that this service runs out of Salt Lake City, and both the storage cloud and the continuity cloud, which is the recovery environment, are operated from that same data center facility. But that being said, within we do a lot of proprietary things inside the data center to protect the data. We call it silent data corruption protection, and it means that we actually create 3 copies of every byte of data, and we actually store it on physically different drives inside the data center, and we're continually monitoring the data because when you're operating at petabyte scale, there will always be corruption of data. It happens. There's all sorts of little bugs that happen at all different parts of where the data moves, and you need to correct for it. And any vendor who's operating at eFolder scale needs to defend against silent data corruption. And so we're continuously checking every copy of the data, and if we notice that there's any corruption, then we will proactively repair it with the other 3 known good copies of the data. So, and then there's a whole levels of automation inside of our data center. So those are a couple thoughts about where is the data living when it's in the cloud, and what are we actually doing to make sure that when and if there is a problem, your data is exactly as it was when it arrived in our data center.
That's excellent. Thanks for the feedback. I'll tell you, the questions that we get from the customer side, definitely that the data is out there is one thing. That it's the correct data is another question entirely. Good to hear that there's a solution there. A third question that comes up is, getting it back. So in terms of, I guess there's a physical question. One question that's come into us here specifically focused on geography. If I'm located on the East Coast in the data center, where this is hosted is in Utah, are there any latency issues? And then on a second level, another question that comes in terms of the process for getting that information back up and running, can you speak a little bit to latency as well as the recoverability of data once it's in your cloud?
Yeah, I think the one great thing about Replibit is it's very efficient and non-intrusive in terms of how it behaves. So the built-in, what we recommend for most partners to do hourly snapshots of a client environment. And normally you would be doing a pre-seed exercise to seed the data center the very first time you're going to do a deployment, and then what you're only sending incremental snapshots every hour. So bandwidth and latency are not normally problems, even though you could be on the East Coast and the data center is in Salt Lake City. And then there's some really cool capabilities inside of Replibit, where, for instance, one of the cool things about Replibit is that the software can be updated dynamically without requiring a server reboot. So the actual agents running on the production servers, you can actually update the agent software either for bug fixes or new feature releases, and you're able to do that without requiring a server reboot. And so it's really very non-intrusive as well in terms of how it behaves. So, a lot of those issues really aren't a big deal, and the software is designed to so-called vault the data off-site as a core part of the solution. Now, recovery, that's really up to our MSP partners in terms of what SLA expectations they've made with a client, in terms of how quickly you want to do a recovery, and what the nature of the disaster is. If it's a site-wide disaster, most commonly you're going to want to invoke the eFolder Continuity Cloud, which is an on-demand compute resource which we deliver to partners, and they're able to then virtualize the client servers in our cloud environment. But if you had something that was less urgent, we can ship data. We often ship data from the data center on disk. Those are commonly the two. If you have full system recovery requirements, those are two very common recovery options. But most of the time, you're going to be doing an on-site recovery right there on the BDR appliance at the client location. Sean, I don't know if you have any additional comments to make on that topic.
Yeah, 9 times out of, even more than that, like you said earlier, 95% of the time, it's going to be some kind of thing that you recover on site. I think it's 1 megabit of bandwidth can transfer 10 gigabytes of data in 24 hours, and that's if you have low latency. So the fact that eFolder does the where they'll ship drives, things like that, is amazing if you did have a catastrophic issue. And the whole idea of this is virtualization, so that you can stand it up in the continuity cloud if you need to. Or the reason why we like it is, for example, we have a retail client of ours that if registers go down, and these are all Windows machines, it's a big deal. It takes a while. There's not a lot of data on them, but it takes a while to set up everything. It's a proprietary system with all the drivers. So the fact that we can spin up a virtual instance, or that we can recover bare metal, back to a new register is huge. It was a big thing for us. So.
Well, and Sean, from that point of view, in terms of the way that you guys have chosen to take this to market, obviously technology that has high performance characteristics, that's interesting. The fact that you can turn it into a line of business and go sell that service to your customers, that's what makes it much more tangible and valuable. How are you guys actually managing your go-to-market strategy? Who are you targeting, and where have you found the results to look from a business point of view?
Yeah, thanks. No, so really a lot of our efforts in the last 6 months, like I explained earlier, is more around converting our existing client base. And our go-to-market, there are plenty of areas of opportunity for different people out there right now to replace these big tape drives, to replace these different things that are out there that are not great, or to bring a solution to someone that doesn't have a solution. But what we've mostly been doing is we just found, as a trusted managed service provider in our scenario, our business plan is that they expect everything to be up and they expect everything to work. So for us, like I said earlier, we could actually lose money on this solution, and we would still want to have it there. We wouldn't be losing money altogether, but we don't lose money. We make money, so that's great. But the idea that we don't have to have a technician try to figure out where it is on the backup, or try to go through a chain of backups. That's the amazing thing about the SandSnap on the Replibit, in the Replibit technology, is that you don't have to do chains, which is great. I don't know how many people out there have had to go back, to an incremental, and then go back again, and then go back a week to the full backup, and it's just a nightmare. It's a headache. So this has allowed us in our existing client base to approach that. And then, of course, you know, there's amazing, even if you're not actively marketing this, if you have a client base and you have a catastrophic thing that happens and you stand them back up right away, that's a huge opportunity for referral. I mean, we try to capitalize on anything like that ever happens, and we get them to give us a, you know, something we can put on our website, and we try to can that. We even have a videographer that we work with to get a video of them, and you know, those are opportunities that obviously you don't want to happen, but when they do happen, they get leveraged into all kinds of other scenarios. Look at that, Richard Reifer's on there giving a correct, what is it, 1 megabit can transfer 9.31. Oh yeah, thank you, Richard, I appreciate that. So one thing it says here, utilize existing hardware. So the existing hardware thing is fantastic. We have clients that we do hardware as a service with some of our clients where we have servers that we provide, and what happens after you've been doing that for a while is that you start to have servers that pile up. So you can use those for Replibit, and you know, we always put new hard drives in them, but it's an amazing reuse of some of these servers so that we can have things out with the clients. Hang on one sec. I'm going to put you guys on mute just for 1 sec.
No worries. Ted, while Sean,
I'm back. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. We're just glad to kind of keep the conversation rolling as you're talking about it. I noticed a couple of questions coming in there in terms of the way that you provide that service to the customer. Do you price it differently if it is, you know, a catastrophic event, we have to ship disks and everything, versus we just have to do a data find and we're replicating bytes, not necessarily restoring an entire data center? Do you guys deal with that a little differently?
For us, no. So we have managed service packages, and there aren't any. I mean, we're all you can eat, so there aren't any additional charges for these clients when these things happen. Our biggest goal is to keep the client going. You know, we use the philosophy that if they were to hire an IT person, they'd have to pay someone, what is it, 173 hours a month. So if we charge, let's say, $2,000 a month, which, you know, we have clients that range from $500 to $4,000 a month, $500 to $4,000 a month. But at $2,000 a month, that would be that's a minimum wage worker, you know, and we come with all these amazing tools to make sure they're up. We make sure they don't have any issues, and you know, we're never sick. We document everything. It's an easy environment to be in. And once the only thing that would really screw it up once you get that sticky as an MSP would be if they did have a catastrophic down. If you did allow them to keep that tape cradle backup, you know, and now they're down for a week, and you didn't have this conversation, and you didn't say, hey, you know, we really need to get in this technology to make sure that you're not down, because they may say that that's okay, but with most clients, that's not okay. A day down is not okay. So we're doing it mostly in a method of protecting our existing client base.
Right, and just to make a comment, I mean, I think we're in kind of a privileged position because we can kind of see the huge variety of ways partners price and package business continuity solutions. But I think the way, Sean, you're doing it is becoming more and more common, where you don't, because you've standardized on a set of tools and a set of technologies, you're able to be super efficient and highly reliable in how you deal with virtually any kind of disaster, whether it's an everyday disaster or a massive disaster, and you're not getting eaten alive on the labor costs because you kind of do it one way, you've got a very reliable system in place, and so you can very quickly solve the client's problems. And therefore, you don't need to, you know, add on project-based income. You don't need to charge time and materials when a problem does occur, because the client basically already paid you for that work by paying the insurance policy, if you will, of buying into your managed service offering every month before that disaster actually occurred.
And if we look at the slide,
that's exactly right.
Now, yeah, if we look at the slide that's up right now, obviously the way that you guys are doing it is not, like you said, it's valuable enough from an operational point of view. You would do it, quote unquote, for free, but apparently you're not doing it for free.
No, not at all. Yeah, we build it right into the price. We add some padding for the idea that, there may be those recoveries that we have to do. And across all of our clients, if one person has a heavy recovery that needs to happen, it'll be absorbed by the other one. So it's not a big issue in that sense. It's more of a something we can rely upon and manage by exception. So one of the things that I know we haven't touched on is Replibit will actually take a snapshot of the VMs and will log that into our ticketing system, into ConnectWise, which is, for us, that's great. So that's a manage by exception thing. We can have a technician look at that, or we can just only look at the issues that are logged, but we can easily look at that. I used to have the conversation that says, with clients that we were trying to get a wedge in, where we'd say, well, how often does your current IT provider actually test your backups? The rubber meets the road when you actually test the backup, and you don't want to be testing it in a scenario where everything's down, because that's the time when, it's not going to work. It's not the time to figure out if it does work. And they might say, well, they test it once a year, or more often than not, they never test it. They have no idea. They have no idea what's going on, or that's not communicated. Well, this can test it every single night. You can even have that go to the client every now and then if you want.
Right. Yeah, that kind of validation and reporting information is the stickiness that allows us to keep these customers long term. So that's a very good point of view. In your environment, as you guys are kind of building it out, the way that you were talking about it, what kinds of technical issues do you have in terms of, with your standardized service, what does that roll forward to the customer in terms of the way they standardize? Are you able to, say, accommodate different hardware configurations on their side? Are you able to restore or recover to a different hardware configuration? How standardized do you need the customer's environment to be in order to fit into that standard service?
Well, I try to set the right mindset for myself as a business owner, but you can see we do have two different types of offerings. For our smaller clients, we really ask for more standardization. Our larger clients, of course, and I'm sure other MSPs out there or other IT guys out there and IT ladies will know that, you're bidding on a really large contract or something. You're going to accommodate that contract, especially government agencies, different areas that aren't going to allow you to come in and standardize all their stuff, or it's going to have to happen over time. So then we might have two solutions. So we have a tape cradle client that they have this expensive HP tape cradle, and so we just stand up a Replibit next to it because we know that we don't want to have to recover on there, but they're trying to get their return on investment and they can't authorize something else. For us, our contract with them was profitable enough that it didn't really matter to us. We make a lot of profit off that specific contract, and so we just knew we were more, and I know I keep going back to this, but we were shoring up our defenses and trying to close any cracks that other vendors could wedge in with, and that was, making sure that if they go down, we can get them back up right away. I know that there are some issues with Replibit and some OEM hardware and virtualizing them, and there's a couple, and that's true of any virtualization software with licensing and things like that. So oftentimes when we first stand up the product, we have to look at some of that. But generally it's not an issue. With the small clients, we just have gotten to a point where we can't, for under a certain amount of money, we can't allow the noise. And I think that's a natural progression for a lot of IT companies, is that you'll find that a big client pays you a lot more, and it ends up being about the same amount of level of work. So the only way to really continue to do the smaller clients is to find a way to standardize, like Ted was saying earlier, and to find good solutions to replace their stuff with what you believe to be the best and what you've tested.
Right, and I think let's keep the questions coming in. I think what would be good is just to make some final comments just about the Replibit solution, how you as a partner can get your hands on it, and then we'll go ahead and get back to some formal Q&A here just to wrap up the session and get some more answers from Sean about how he's deploying the solution. But just, I mean, we were just talking about this, but this just kind of captures, you know, what we're talking about here. I mean, the beauty of eFolder BDR for Replibit is it's when you get a chance to standardize the business continuity solution you're deploying to your clients, you're going to be able to wring tons of labor out of the equation. You're going to get advantages from standardizing alone, but with the Replibit solution, Sean's mentioned some of the kind of unique advantages. The fact that the solution is not chain-based is going to make it inherently more reliable. It's going to give you more granularity and agility in dealing with different recovery points depending on what kind of challenge the client's having. You're going to be able to repurpose hardware because the Replibit BDR appliance software is built on Linux, Linux Ubuntu Core, so you can put it on virtually any kind of server class hardware, and there's no extra cost from you know, like Windows operating systems and that sort of thing. And then really the integration, the ConnectWise integration is extremely robust. So if you happen to be using ConnectWise for your PSA tool, you can do ticketing, you can append tickets so it doesn't create, you know, when there are issues, it doesn't create just numerous tickets for one particular problem. It has this really unique appending capability with the ConnectWise integration. It can automatically close tickets when issues are resolved. But this screenshot verification capability Sean mentioned is really critical, because if you are making that commitment to your clients that you are going to verify the recoverability of their backups, you really have two choices. Either you do it manually, if you're telling clients you're doing it, and actually do a test virtualization of an environment, which is manual intensive, but a great idea if that's your only option. Or you leverage a solution that automates it. And the nightly screenshot verifications, which boot each server either on premises or in the cloud, in the vault, and then drop that screenshot verification into your ConnectWise instance, allows you to automate this hugely labor-intensive process, A, and B, provide that proof to your clients that you actually are going to be able to recover their environment. So it's the driving down the amount of labor and overhead in providing a business continuity solution to all of your clients is a huge part of the equation here. So we've kind of touched on all of these main points and kind of features, so I don't want to belabor them. One comment I will make is that what we do is we bundle in 2 terabytes of cloud storage per protected server, and all of that storage gets pooled at the partner level. And so really what we're trying to do with the amount of storage we're bundling is really just completely take the storage component really off the table in terms of a conversation item and something you need to worry about. I think with a lot of legacy BDR solutions, I think a lot of the MSP community has been very surprised by the cost of the cloud in providing an end-to-end business continuity solution, and that's because data is growing, clients are growing all the time, and it's all growing faster than we anticipate, and then the cloud utilization has been higher, and so you get surprises on your wholesale costs. Today, the typical server that eFolder is protecting in our cloud consumes about 250 gigs in our cloud environment, and we are now bundling 2 terabytes per protected server with the Replibit service. And so it's a massive amount of storage. It's pooled at the partner level, so you're able to balance. When you're vaulting to us, you're able to balance your small clients with your large clients, and it's a massive amount of included storage. And it all comes to you in one competitive, predictable price point. So what you see here is these are the price points of what an MSP would pay eFolder on a monthly basis per protected server. And you know, as you see, as you get higher and higher number of servers, your wholesale price drops, and each one of those protected servers includes that 2 terabytes. So with that, let me just kind of go to the next slide here, and Ryan, why don't we go back to the phones for questions?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for the wrap-up, and there's a lot of good questions that are coming in because people are kind of getting beyond the concept and into some of the operational stuff. Question for you in terms of the way that you would do a recovery into the continuity cloud. Is that a bundled feature in the system? Is there an additional charge that kicks in if I recover to that? And how long could a customer's server actually stay stood up in the continuity cloud before we get their systems back online?
I'll tackle that one. The eFolder Continuity Cloud is an add-on it's a capability that is available to any partner and their clients if you're using an eFolder BDR service or eFolder Backup, as the case may be. But it's a service you don't pay for unless you need it. So it's kind of like an insurance there. It's always there at your disposal. If you have a client who has a site-wide outage, you basically submit an emergency ticket to eFolder, and within an hour we have the Continuity Cloud node provisioned. And it gives you the ability to recover n number of clients. You can elect to do a small, medium, or large Continuity Cloud node, and that's going to be driven by how many servers you need to virtualize in the Continuity Cloud node. But the medium node is $150 per week wholesale to you, the MSP. And again, that's not per server, that's not per client, that's a medium, like just if we take the example of the medium node, it's $150 wholesale, and you can virtualize a handful of servers with the medium node, kind of up to 4, just about. That's enough capacity to do that. And you can add as many Continuity Cloud nodes or several large nodes as the case may be, depending on what the context of the outage is. And then in terms of how long you could stay up and running in the Continuity Cloud, that's really up to you. So it can be weeks or months. For many of eFolder's BDR services, what partners will do is if they have a client that has really low RTO requirements, meaning that even if there was a site-wide disaster, they wanted to be back up and running in minutes, you can also purchase from eFolder a 24/7, 365 Continuity Cloud node where you have it for the whole year, and you could actually stand up like a virtual standby job there in the Continuity Cloud node and do, literally have the ability to go in and do a recovery, even if, let's say, the whole building burned down, like within minutes. So those are a couple different use cases on how the eFolder Continuity Cloud node gets licensed and paid for and used.
Excellent. Thank you for the clarification. Sean, from your point of view, a couple of questions have come in from the operational side. The inline integration with the systems between eFolder and ConnectWise, obviously there's some work that goes into setting that up. But when it comes to the dashboards, the actual management toolkits, are we looking, when you actually manage these environments, are you looking at an integrated dashboard, and are you able to get those alerts in real time through your system? Talk a little bit about how that works from the actual engineer's point of view when he's managing the implementations.
Sure. I actually have some technicians that work for me that do that, and they're not on the call, but I do know that we have a virtualized Replibit instance on our hypervisor, and we have management through that to all of our different Replibit servers, so we can see that. The part that I see on a regular basis would be the tickets that the Replibit servers create when there are issues. So you actually create, and I'm sure Autotask is very similar, but for ConnectWise, or whatever other product you might use, but for ConnectWise, what we use, we have an integrator that we set up, and it will create service tickets for us, and we have a separate board for those service tickets, and then we've set up workflow rules on that to allow those tickets to either be elevated or closed for informational purposes. So, and the whole idea is when we set up anything like this, we sit down and go, how do we do this as best we can and with as little effort. That sounds bad, but with as little effort as we possibly can. So the idea with that is the workflow rules are huge for us within ConnectWise in order to handle that. But that's true of any PSA system that you might have or CRM. you should be able to set that up after you do the tickets. Even if you didn't have those, you just would have the tickets that went on your board that would say, either have a snapshot or say that you're running out of space or say that the virtualization didn't work or whatever exception that you're managing for.
Yeah, no, that's great. In fact, I think that everybody who does this in the real world would echo your sentiment. It's cool if the tools have certain capabilities. It's another thing entirely to use them in production. So the fact that there are some very practical workarounds, that's a very interesting way to approach these solutions. Ted or Sean, from either of your point of view, we're getting a little bit close to the end of the time that we have. A number of the questions that we have out there, I'd love to get some closing thoughts around this from both of you guys. The questions are kind of centered around the onboarding process for an MSP, the onboarding process for a customer, about how long does that take? How would we, if I'm an MSP and I'm not doing this right now, what do I need to do to get my ducks in a row, and then how quickly and how would I begin to roll that out to my customers? Love some closing thoughts from both of you on that kind of a topic.
Well, I can do it from an internal, how we do it. So it's really easy to set up. It's an ISO that you download that you can put onto a USB. I would suggest for that person to, bring one in-house, test it, sign up for, I think there's a 3-server bundle or a 1-server bundle, and what is it, 3 servers and 5 workstations is the good starting point, Ted?
Yeah, it's a 3-server minimum.
There you go.
3-server minimum, yep.
Yeah, so you can start testing that. That's what we did. We actually found it's very fast to set these things up, so it's definitely pretty simple. It came with all the walkthroughs. Like I said, I have a technician that sets those things up, but I have set up several myself, and it's a live Linux ISO, so it works very well.
Right, and just to get started with eFolder, I mean, we have product specialists who are standing by to give any interested MSPs a live demo of the product to explore, how eFolder does business. I mean, we really try to make it so it's really easy to get on the on-ramp. 3-server minimum. All of eFolder's service offerings are month-to-month, so partners you can sign up. If it's not what's right for you, you can cancel with 30 days notice, so we're not looking for you to make long-term commitments. And then we do, I think, an industry-leading job in terms of onboarding. It's really, we have a dedicated team that does partner onboarding, and we really focus on 2 dimensions to the process. It's around making sure you and your techs are extremely well trained on the product, and so there's a live training process, and then we also go through kind of the pricing, packaging, sales, and marketing dimension to getting started. And we take partners through a very deliberate process before really turning you loose to go start embedding this into your client base and driving more demand.
Excellent. Thank you guys both for that kind of a wrap-up, because ideas are good, but action is much more interesting, and that's where we want to make sure we point people in the right direction. It's been a great conversation. The time has flown by, so we've arrived at the top of the hour. Let me say thanks very much to everybody who joined us for the call today. We really appreciate the participation, and especially the active participation in the interactive conversation around questions and answers. Thank you guys very much for jumping in. If you do have additional questions on this topic, or you're looking for ongoing industry coverage and points of view, please feel free to reach out to the folks that lead our websites and are responsible for keeping this conversation going. We've provided their contact information here on this slide. The editors are always interested in what you think and what kinds of challenges you're having, so please let us know how we can continue the conversation. We also do have a spot on our website if you want to come back and check for the schedule for future sessions like this. Please feel free to drop by mspmentor.net and look for the links for the Channel Expert Hour. You should be able to find additional schedule and future sessions that are going to be hosted. So thanks again, everybody. Ted and Sean, thank you guys for your participation. That will wrap up our session for today. Great business success, everybody.
Thank you.